What is up, guys? In this video we're going to go over how you can add CSS to your current website, and this is going to be actually a full CSS tutorial. And what I want you to try to note is how it gets used. I'm going to link some resources, of course, so you can learn a bit more about what is required for you to use CSS efficiently. And also in the future we will be creating websites, so all of this will lead up to what we will eventually create. But in this video we're going to be styling this very simple CSS element, which is just a circle with my logo inside, and if you go on it, it will make a nice rotating effect which will turn into a square. And this is all done in vanilla CSS with only 2 HTML elements, so it's very simple, and this will give you a really good understanding of how to get started with CSS. But the first thing you want to do is open Visual Studio Code or whatever your editor is and drag in an empty folder. So my empty folder was called test website, that's why it says test website here. And the first thing we want to create is our index.html. Then right here, all we want to do is type in HTML5 and it will give us this template here, which just gives us a lot of metadata, which we don't have to worry about right now. Then let's go ahead and create another file, which we're just going to call styles.css and click on enter. So now we have a CSS file and an HTML file, and let's also save this one here. Now the next thing we want to do is go ahead and open this with a live server. So as you can see right now, we have nothing on our HTML page. It just says index.html. So let's go ahead and start with linking some CSS files to it. So the first thing we want to do is type in link, and there's this CSS shortcut. So we'll click on that. And as you can see right here, the file is called styles.css. So all we have to do is change this to styles.css. And now we can use this CSS file. And of course, if this is in a folder, you need to provide the proper path. So pretend that's in a CSS folder. You have to type in css/styles.css and it will work the same way. But since we're just using it in the main folder, we can just type in styles.css. Next, inside the body, we want to create a div. So we're going to type in div, and we're going to start by providing a class. So we're going to type in circle frame for this div, and that is the class name we will use. And then we're going to create a header inside here, which is just going to be header1. And we're going to give this an ID of Code Palace, and inside here we just need to type in the text that we want to insert. So for now, that is our basic layout. If we go ahead and click on save, you'll notice that we'll have the text of Code Palace appear in our index. But for now, that's all we have to do in the HTML file, so we can go to our CSS file now. And inside here, we're going to get started by talking about a few of the selectors. So first we have the kind of global element selector, which means if we go back to our HTML, you'll notice that we have elements such as head, meta, title, link, body, and so on. These are elements that you can refer to just by typing in the name. It's not very specific, but you can do it. So for example, if we want to change this body to a lighter or a darker color, because we like dark mode better, all we have to do is type in body, and this will select all of the body elements. So to change the background color, we will just type in background color, and we're going to do #111, which will be a dark gray. So now if we click on save, you'll notice that the style will have been applied to our HTML file, and this will apply to all the elements that have the body tag. Then we're going to go ahead and type in padding, which is going to be of 100 pixels, and that's going to provide some space between the border and the inner content of the body. And then another thing we can do, since we cannot see this at the moment, is change the text inside to white. So to do this, all you have to do is type in color and white, and it's going to change all of the inner content that is text to white. So that takes care of pretty much the element selector. But now let's go ahead and stylize the frame. So right now, if you go back to the index, you'll notice that we have this div, which is a circle frame. But for right now, it's not really anything, and actually, I want to show you a trick as well, but first we should go ahead and get started by selecting the circle frame. And since it is a class, you want to add a dot, which means we are selecting a class, and type in circle frame, which is the name of the class we gave it. And the first thing we're going to do inside here is actually create an outline so we can see what we're working with. And to do this, we're just going to type in border, and then we're going to give it a thickness of 3 pixels and give it a solid line, which is going to be red. And if we click on save, you'll notice that currently this div is around Code Palace, and that is what it looks like. So this is a very good trick in case you ever get confused about what you are editing. Just create a border of any thickness and place it inside an element. And you'll notice that you can get a very easy understanding about how things are working on the web page. But for now, we are going to comment this out. So we're just going to use the shortcut. And in case you want to use the shortcut as well, just go to Edit, and you'll notice down here that you'll have an option that says Toggle Line Comment, and you just need to find out what that shortcut is, and then you can use it as well. But inside here, we're going to get started by giving it a background color of #333, which is a slightly lighter gray. Then we want to align the text to the center. So we're going to type in text align center, which puts it perfectly in the center right there. Then we also have to give this block a width of 120 pixels and a height of 120 pixels. So that will be a small square, in other words, just like that. Then we are going to go ahead and give it a border radius of 100%, which means all the corners are round to the maximum level. But as you can see right now, CodePalace is a bit up, so we need to fix that, and we'll get right to that very soon. So next we have to go ahead and type in margin and set that to auto. And that is just a very simple way to center an element. It just provides a margin on both sides that is equal, which means it will push the element to the center. Then we should go ahead and give this a padding of 20 pixels. And now you may have noticed that CodePalace is a little bit more centered, which is great. And the next thing we should do is go ahead and give this a border, as I did earlier, but this is just going to be for the style. So we're going to do border 3 pixel solid white. So that's going to look like that. Then we should go ahead and add a very nice animation, which makes it spin or makes it do something else in case the user hovers over it. Otherwise, it's a bit boring. So to do that, we're just going to type in transition. And the first thing we need to specify is how long you want the transition to be. And we'll just provide 1 second. And then we'll type in ease, which allows the animation to ease into itself. And then let's click on save. And so far we have a nice circle with CodePalace inside, but of course there's no animation. That's because we need to add a pseudo class, which I'll show you right now what it is. And we'll type in circle frame again, but this time we will add a colon. And inside here, as you can see, there are plenty of what they call pseudo classes. And for this one, we're just going to type in hover. So this means every time we hover over the element, it's going to trigger this reaction. So down in here, we're going to type in background color, and we're going to just type in crimson, which is a very nice red. Then we're going to change the padding to 40 pixels, and we're going to give it a border radius of 10 pixels. So now if we hover over it, it's going to turn into a square with a red background. Just like that. But let's also make it rotate. So let's go ahead and type in rotate, and we just provide 360 degrees. And now you'll see that your element rotates and turns into a very nice square. And now we can go over what it means to provide an ID and what it means to provide a class. So let's go ahead and type in CodePalace. And the only thing we're going to do inside here is give it a color, which is going to be cyan. So as you can see right now, we have the color cyan inside here and not white, as we have specified earlier. And I'm going to explain this in further detail in a different video, but for now you just need to realize that each one of these selectors has a rating or a score, and body is the weakest. Then you have classes which are stronger and the IDs which are the strongest. So the more specific you get, the higher the score. And with a higher score, you get dominance, which means the color cyan will dominate over the color white. So IDs are a way to be very specific. Classes are a way to kind of create elements that affect many things, so they're a little bit less specific. And using these universal selectors is just a way to give it a general outline, which means you shouldn't really rely on the body tag to style everything, because of course you'll have a class that will probably override that. And I'm sure I actually missed one very important concept if you're new to CSS, but let's pretend you write with 120 pixels here and with 200 pixels here. Now you may be wondering which one of these will actually show up. Well, in CSS, it's the last declared attribute that will actually show up. So if you go ahead and click on save, you'll notice that 200 pixels will show and not 120 pixels. And it's actually in the name, cascading style sheets, where everything will happen in the order you put it. But let's go back to what we had earlier, and let's actually change this cyan to white because I like that much more. The core concepts you should have learned from this video is that there are selectors and that the universal ones are very weak. The classes are used for many items or many HTML elements, and the IDs should only be used for specific elements that are very special. You can use them as often as you want, but make sure you use an ID on something that you want to stand out, something that's very unique. But in the long run, the best thing you want to do is learn how to create reusable CSS blocks. So, I mean, you can create a circle frame class, which works for anything you use. And if we actually copy and paste this block down here, you'll notice that we can insert any text we want inside here. We can say hello world and click on save, and we'll have another one that looks just the same as the previous one. It has the same effects, and they both work really nicely. So there aren't that many rules to creating CSS, but you should always keep in mind that you want to make it reusable. And also later we'll go on about organizing these files so it doesn't become too confusing when you have bigger projects. But with that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next CSS video. See you.